So like I said, guys, if you have questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat box and we can get to them a little bit later on. The next part is this: actions equal words. And so I actually read about this in an advertising book I was reading once, trying to teach myself how to do market and advertise for the brand, right? Because in small businesses, you tend to wear many hats and do many jobs, many roles. And so I found this to be quite interesting. It's something that many of us think we know. We're like, yeah, we know what you say and what you do needs to make sense, right? Otherwise, people are going to call you a hypocrite, right? A wonderful example of this is, not to get political, but a wonderful example of this is our government, right? Where somebody says A and then they do B, and then you look at them and go like, this doesn't make sense. Something's not right. So similarly with the business, your actions need to equal your words. And let me explain that to you. So when you look at words, some of us write these fancy business plans, right? You've got all these pages, these documents, and you produce all these things on your mission, your vision, your values, your brand promise, And I don't want to get into that because that's stuff that you can find online, right? And I'm sure many of you've done this, you've studied this before. So you put all these words down on a piece of paper. We talk about language. We talk about being eco-friendly. We talk about sustainability. We talk about being ethical. Nowadays in the corporate sector, we have ESG, and that's like a big buzzword, right? Secondly, we talk about our mission and vision, right? What is your mission of your brand? What is the vision of your brand? Our mission is to connect with our customers as we sell them beautiful jewelry that has an impact, for example, right? Then you have your promises and your brand values. We pledge exclusivity, inclusivity, quality of product, things like this. And then of course you've got all the social media stuff. We've all got to be on Instagram. So you put all these images and quotes about, peace and positivity, and you got to like live your best life. And we're all a community and girl power and God knows what else, right? So you put all this up there, and then this is your brand. Your customers will look at this and they go, all right, so this is what FutureLab stands for. This is who they're about. Then we look at your actions. We look at transparency. That's a big one. We look at measurement and evaluation. How are you measuring and evaluating what you do, especially when you're in the impact space? How do you communicate your impact to your customers and to your stakeholders? So what does your M&E look like? What about communications? What are you sharing with people to be more transparent? And how are you sharing that information? If we look at an impact as well, how are you sharing the impact? And then we look at our multi-stakeholders. You've got not only your customers who buy from you, you have the communities that you work with, you may have the beneficiaries that you give the money to, you may have other stakeholders like government stakeholder, corporation stakeholders who buy some of your corporate items. So you have different stakeholders, right? And everyone is buying your product because they're buying into your brand promise. They're buying into your mission as a brand, right? Then you have your supply chain. You make a product. Where does the raw material come from? Is it biodegradable? Is it organic? Is it eco-friendly? Is it ethical? Do they pay people fair wages? Is there child labor? How do you check these things? And then who makes your product? What packaging do you use for your products? How much do you pay people for certain things? And then when you sell it on your website, that whole supply chain. And then of course your product and service. What is the quality of your product and service that you're offering? So if you compare these two and you look on the left of your screen, you see these two arrows. What you say is the orange arrow, and then what you do is the dark purple arrow. So if what you're saying and what you're doing is aligned, then in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, in 150 years' time, some of you watch on CNN, it says they sometimes showcase companies that turned 100 years old. And you see, how do they survive? I mean, of course, they have to pivot, they have to adapt, things like technology and external influences, but essentially what they say and what they do is aligned, if that makes sense. All the stuff that's under words, your language, your vision, your mission, and everything that you're actually doing, you're acting on it, is aligned. Then there's alignment, there is authenticity, and also there's opportunity for growth. Where else, if you look at the light purple arrow that's weaning off to the right, you start slowly shifting away. In the beginning, it's not bad, right? If you look at the bottom, in the beginning, it's fine. You've got a little shift, and you think, oh, it's fine, it's okay, it's temporary, we're saving money, blah, blah, blah. And then 2 years later, the drift is wider. And 5 years later, it's even wider. And one fine day, you wake up and realize that everything you said you were and who you are is not what you've become. And so I would say for me, this is also a very important way of always at the back of my mind thinking about, sometimes we do have to make tough decisions as brands in order to keep our brand sustainable and running, but keeping something in the back of your mind like this keeps you on check, if you will, to always manage your words and your actions. And if you need to do a rebranding and if you need to change things up, then maybe you need to do that, but be very conscious and cognizant of that fact.